Take it out, please. Everybody's taken the phone out. Is that the most valuable thing that you possess? As of now? So it's not the driving license in your wallet? No wallet, okay. Your room key? Okay. It's surprising. So everybody's taking out mobile phone? Okay, so now why don't you hand it over your personal possession to the person standing or sitting next to you? And let's do that, Jagdish. Okay. And for the duration of this session, let's ensure that the other guy has your possession. Because guys, security is all about trust. So let's start by, no, it is. So please sit down, thank you. And then keep your, so, but my only request is pay attention to me and not to the person who has your possession now. Sorry, what did you say? You should have taken everybody's phone. All right. So we have talked a lot since yesterday about digital transformation and how it's impacting the traditional industries. And the fact of the matter is about 22% of global GDP is now attributed to digital goods and services. That's a huge number. So the reality is it's here and now. And it's not surprising that almost every CEO has a digital initiative, right? We talked about experience, customers more looking at digital experience they're getting rather than products and services. And because everybody is trying to see and sense what's the next big thing that's going to happen and try to deliver it to their consumers faster than their competition, velocity is becoming a key, right? And in that rush to deliver faster, convenient, and with higher degree of experience, the reality is that businesses are taking on huge amount of risk. 90% of all confirmed breaches exploit application defects. You guys have heard of WannaCry? Equifax? What was Equifax issue? It was a vulnerability in Apache struts. Such a small thing from a developer's perspective, right? It got exposed in March, but the agencies didn't do anything till July. And those 3 months kind of played havoc in their business line. So when everybody is rushing to embrace application economy, it introduces risk. But when we as business leaders or when CIOs and IT leaders, we look at taking out something new, the fact of the matter is that with each new technology, the same fundamental question that our consumers and our customers are going to ask. Can I trust this? Price, availability, quality, all that matter. But at the bottom of it, right, your applications will not get used if your consumers cannot trust it today. And we have data points on the slide here that says, online shoppers are going to terminate a purchase, they're unhappy about the amount of information you are asking them to provide, and so on and so forth. So truth be told, trust impacts business outcome today. The data breaches have gone more frequent, they've gone much bigger. And when that happens, there's loss of trust. Companies now really have a danger of getting out of business because of a single event of a breach. Equifax is an example. There has been many other. Yahoo, 3 billion users, all been exposed. And it has started to impact global economy, not just individual businesses. About $3 trillion worth of slowness in the growth is being attributed to cyber attacks. There was an article I was reading that said that if cyber crime industry was listed in stock exchange, everybody should buy the stock. Because the growth at which it is increasing, right? It is the most fundamentally superior investment. And that's the reason why there's so many bad actors after it, right? CISOs used to report to CIOs and then to CEOs. That started changing. Security became a primary objective for CIOs. Then we started seeing CEOs getting involved, and now it's one of the primary reasons why board of directors are looked at from a regulation perspective. So cybersecurity is kind of becoming so relevant that it's kind of climbing the organization hierarchy as well. So how do we ensure trust in the online world? We saw the statistics that 90% of the confirmed breaches happen because of vulnerability in the software. There are other two statistics that as well that I have that is relevant. One is 70% of hackers use stolen or weak credentials, right? And 60% of malware uses privileged escalations. So when your line of business owners are worried about delivering value to the customers with speed, scale, and trust, the trust part comes at the very end. And when you try to look at bolt security at the end of your entire life cycle of your application, the breaches happen more frequently, right? Fundamentally, what we believe is we need a new model of trust for this zero trust online world. When you look at trust, right, different people have different definition. It makes a lot of unease and anxiety from a human psychology perspective when you have to trust somebody whom you don't know, right? We just did that exercise when you guys handed over your phones to each other, right? But we know each other. This is a confined group. When a consumer or user is trying to access a new application, there is a sense of anxiety with all the news and media about breaches that's happening, right? So how do you develop trust? But before that, right, what is trust? We looked at three definitions. Trust is the belief in the reliability of you and your business. It's the belief in the integrity of you and your business. And it's the belief in the confidence of you and your business. So integrity, reliability, and confidence. That kind of makes the model of trust for us. So, and this is a quote that I really like that says, if people like you, they'll listen to you, but if they trust you, they'll do business with you. And we have seen time and again when consumers start trusting a particular application or particular brand, their business results go up, right? And there are companies which have gone out of business because consumers have stopped trusting that brand or that business. Today, information is ubiquitous, right? We saw that digital experience drives the transformation and increase in business. But the reality is the perimeter breaches are increasingly become the norm. What in the past used to be a network-based security, right? You are inside and you put adequate controls at the perimeter of your network and you say you are safe and secure inside it. That's no longer true. So from perimeter-based security, right, we are starting to see a paradigm shift towards what we call digital identity. So digital identity has become the modern imperative for the security in today's world. What creates trust in your online world today is your digital identity. Why? Because when I, as Sumeet Mathur, whether I'm sitting here and accessing my applications of my corporate office from Udaipur, or I'm sitting inside my own office in Hyderabad, the only constant person is me and my identity, right? And similarly for you, I'm sure you have your employees, your customers, your partners trying to access applications that are inside your organization, on-prem, as well as your applications that you are leveraging from your SaaS world. So when network perimeter disappears, the fundamental perspective of security becomes your identity. But then how do you define identity? What is your identity? Username, right? That's one. What else? It's your password. What else? Fingerprint, right? It's your biometric, your email ID, your questions and answers and challenges, your mobile phone number, your IP address, right? Your device ID. Because if I'm accessing a particular application from my mobile phone versus my laptop, it's a different identity, right? Your network ID, where are you accessing? You're accessing it from your VPN or you're accessing from within your corporate LAN. That also helps you define your identity. And your behavior profile. Why is behavior profile important? Because identity is not only who you are, it's also what you do. So I expect, like for example, I'm in the habit of paying my online bills using net banking every Saturday morning. I expect my bank to know that. And I expect, since they know that, over a period of historical evidence that they have gathered through my actions, I expect them to provide me seamless, frictionless experience because they should know that's my normal behavior. I travel to US about 4 to 6 times a year. And when I'm there and I'm trying to access my banking application, they should know that this is not the normal behavior. So they should prompt me for a step-up authentication, right? But if they detect somebody from East Africa accessing my user ID in the middle of a Friday night, I would expect them to block it, right? Because, so what I expect from my bank to do is take action based on my past behavior profiles. Either it's frictionless, or it's step-up authentication, or completely block it, right? So that's why I associate my behavior with my identity. And in this example, right, what are we expecting? We are expecting that bank as an entity to be able to make intelligent decisions based on analytics. And what we have found is that to control risk and to identify profile-based, seamless, frictionless access, you got to deploy analytics in your security space, right? And let me give a couple of examples of how they get used, right? One was this net banking example that was clearly analytics-based. But there are other examples as well. For example, when you have privileged users accessing what is called crown jewels of your network or your systems, right? Are you able to start a session recording when you see that something critical is being accessed by your privileged users? Because remember, insider threats have overtaken external threats now, right? So that's a basis of, are you able to intelligently do something based on a particular action from a particular user in real time for that transaction. We talk about governance and we talk about audits, etc., right? We have started to use analytics in our governance tool where when a request comes to a manager to be able to say, do you certify or do you approve this access for this user? How do I help that manager to approve or disapprove that? Right? I need to be able to provide some analytical information to that manager that says, if you approve this request, the risk level of this user will go up because he has access to this, and that as well. So how do you combine that existing information with the new information that's being asked for and then provide a legitimate response for people to take action? So this is some of the data that we have, that there is an increase in user experience, reduction in fraud, business efficiency, and compliance audits. This is one of the other examples that we have started to see is, we talk about modern software factory, we talk about application economy, everybody's writing more code. That's true, right? But when you write more code, one of the things that we as a product development organization have to do is, we have to certify, as an engineering leader, every quarter, I have to certify how many of my engineers have access to what code repository. it is a regulation for me because code is an asset for us, right? We started using our own application because we believe in eating our own dog food, and we were able to reduce the time for audit and increase in accuracy of that audit by almost 75%. And here we have about 3,000 engineers accessing 5,000 different code repositories. So code governance has kind of become a new set of use case now in this new modern software factory or digital app economy business. So what do we do? So from a CA perspective, we work on digital identities, we do access management, we do payment and application security, and we do risk analytics solutions. How we do it? The underlying principle for us has been more and more becoming about advanced analytics to understand the risk profile, the identity, and to control risk with as little friction as possible so that the experience goes up. And we do it for all organizations that are engaged in some level of digital transformation through apps and online services, etc. Right? So our entire security portfolio kind of mimics this theme. This is in a nutshell of our security solutions. In the digital identity space, sorry I said the pointers doesn't work, we have identity suite, identity governance, privileged access management. And when you talk about identity governance, that's the tool that I was talking about for code governance. All right, and you can obviously use, traditionally people have used it for compliance and audits and things like that. The privileged access management, it's one of the main reasons today why malwares are becoming so devastating in corporate network. Because, by the way, you know how the hackers use information about corporations? It's become so simple now. If I am interested to hack your organization, the first thing hackers do is they go on LinkedIn and search for administrators at company ABC. You'll get a list of administrators because everybody puts their profile up there, right? Then you're interested to know who is the administrator for your Salesforce application or your database administrators, right? Then you search them out. And then you start following that person's social media activities and social media profile so that you're able to get access to that individual's credentials much easily, right? That trend has started way back then, right? And now we started seeing this insider threat. Snowden, who was famous for WikiLeaks, became like the poster child of insider threat, right? And when you have that, unless you have a better control of your crown jewels through a very robust privileged access management solution, you're opening up to a lot more data breaches and risks. So we have this solution which is market leading, and a lot of it has helped a lot of organizations to prevent that. Single sign-on. If you have organization that is mid to big size, you don't want your employees to be signing off at multiple applications. Like I said, we eat our own dog food. We have about 12,000 employees. We have about 150 distinct applications that a normal employee uses, both on-prem and SaaS. And we deploy this single sign-on application for ourselves. Multi-factor authentication. We have about 7 of the top banks in India use our multi-factor authentication to do their net banking transactions. Threat analytics is, we talked a little bit about analytics and risk analytics network both, right? They kind of form on the user behavior paradigm. And then we made 2 new acquisitions, Veracode and Atomic, very recently in CA in this fiscal year. Veracode is very interesting. You can't think about security once your code is ready to deploy, because that's too late. You have to start thinking about security as your coders build their application on a nightly basis. And Veracode is a market leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant that does a fabulous job of doing scanning of your code and giving you about, information about security loopholes, because that's what 90% of the confirmed data breaches have shown us, right? And Atomic is our automation related business product line. And this, the emergence or the convergence of security with DevOps have kind of started a new theme in the market. You can call it secure DevOps or DevSecOps. So that you're not thinking about security post-operation, you're thinking about security during the development cycle. Right? So those are the 4 pillars. And the intent of all this is so that we ensure trust and control for any application or digital interaction that you have or your customers have. So I'd like to go a little bit deeper into one of these use cases or one of the things that you probably run into on a daily basis, right? How do you orchestrate identity and access? Oops. You have your customers, partners, employees, and now your Internet of Things. As Internet of Things start increasing rapidly, guess what? They will have an identity, right? And they will require the same level of access and control and risk mitigation as humans do. About 4 or 5 months back, a large part of US internet went down because there was a denial of service attack from which people say came from somewhere in China. And that denial of service attack used millions of webcams. That's it. They exposed a vulnerability in one of the embedded software of a particular vendor's webcams, and they leveraged it to do a denial of service attacks at the core internet infrastructure of US. So, like humans, the IoT, the individual identity Internet of Things material would also require identity and risk mitigation and access and similar, everything similar. So you talk about application code scanning, we talk about your directory, risk analytics, single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, identity management. You may see that as individual themes and individual pillars, right? But unless you have a comprehensive story that connects your identity and access in a single orchestrated manner, you expose yourself to risk. And the reason is because research and surveys and practical experiences have shown people that the security lapses and the breaches don't necessarily happen in silos. They typically happen in the seam of the integration of one or more applications. So unless you have a portfolio view of end-to-end securing your identities and mitigating your risk, how you think about when you're a new employee or a new customer onboards into your system, what access you give it to him, right? So that he has a seamless experience and being productive from day one. That's what we aspired to do. But then how do you ensure it has got the right level of risk? If the user is a privileged user, has access to a certain level of database, how do you ensure that that particular user doesn't get access which is way beyond what he needs? By the way, when it comes to privileged accounts, most people don't even know how many privileged accounts users do they have in their organization. And you know why? Because with privileged accounts, it's not only the accounts that is given to me or one individual to another individual. With DevOps coming, with your build scripts running, with your deployment scripts running, you have privileged accounts now which do not have a human tied to it. So when you do a nightly build, and then that nightly build gets generated, and then you automatically deploy that build on your systems, and then bring that up, and then run a set of testing. All that scripts have privileged accounts that they need and they use. You guys agree with that? Right? And most of the time, in our audit and certification and governance process, we forgot about those hard-coded privileged username and password, right? And they never get changed. And guess what? They become very vulnerable to attacks. So people don't even know how many accounts do they have in their organizations and systems. We talked about omni-channel, right? Unless you're secure in a very similar way through your mobile and web and API for your on-prem or for your SaaS applications, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if your security is rock solid for your mobile and application, but have vulnerabilities on your APIs. So, because one breach, one leak somewhere can bring your system down. So what we strive to do is we strive to enable the right people with the right access to the right resources. Because if you don't do, then you lose efficiency in your organization. You got to do it with reduced cost, right? And then you have to control access to applications and data with risk analytics and informed decisions. This is just some data that talks about how our customers are today using, right? We have about $1 trillion of financial transactions that get protected every day with our CA payment security solution. That's 1 trillion. We have about 53 million plus users of online banking protected with multi-factor authentication. By the way, that 53 million users is from one of the largest banks in India. We have 30 million plus consumers governed by identity management, 3 billion plus authentication and authorization per month with single sign-on, and about 400 million of objects stored in enterprise directory, which is our CA directory product. Right? Why is that important? That's important because you need to ensure that when you deal with products that are talking about security, they are proven to be working at a scale. You may think today that you're starting something new, you may not need scale, but very soon, if it becomes a success, you don't know how soon you will require scalability and high performance. You need flexible implementation, right? You can't have a separate security strategy for your on-prem product, for your SaaS products, or for a hybrid product. You need single security tool to be able to do it across all types of deployment. We need frictionless step-up authentication, and then you need a comprehensive suite of product portfolio that does everything related to identity, access, authorization, privilege through analytics. So if there's one thing that I would leave with you guys is, if you have to remember CA, you have to remember this, that what we try to do is, we try to ensure that there's trust and control risk for any type of application or digital interaction. Being it an API-based interaction, being it mobile-based interaction, being it web-based interaction, any kind of interaction, when it comes to digital identity, that's what our business is. Okay. Thank you. That's all I had.